So, welcome to the Profit by Design podcast. Today, we have a special guest with us, Seth Gordon, who is getting ready for his 4-week vacation. He is in the final 2-month period before he's going on his vacation. And I'll share with you the fun story about how Seth and I connected and what prompted the 4-week vacation in just a bit. But I want to welcome Seth to the podcast, and I want to share a little bit about who Seth is, so you know some background. Seth Gordon is the owner and CEO of Glacier Supply Group in the Pacific Northwest. Glacier is a family-owned business that was established in 2021 when Seth and his wife, Leanne, purchased an existing business. They live in the Seattle area with their 3 energetic sons, Eli, 7, Mickey, 5, and Jonah, 3. Seth and his family love baseball, the Mariners, skiing, and crabbing. So, Seth, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Sabrina. Thanks for having me on. Super excited for today's conversation.
I am too. So, just to let our listeners know, you and I connected at the EOS conference in 2023. And we were in a similar session, and it was all about being a better human being so that we could be better leaders. And Rob Dubay connected us during that session because you had something that was very important to you. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it was an incredible breakout session. Rob was there, Gino was there, and I just took an opportunity to ask a question to Gino. It was kind of talking about 10 disciplines and taking time off, and I'd kind of gone through like a personal VTO planning, just kind of creating my own personal goals, and one of those was around just taking more time off, and specifically kind of had this long 10-year goal to take all summers off of work. And it was a bit awkward because I didn't necessarily feel comfortable asking that question. Our integrator was there at the EOS conference. We had a bunch of our team that was also there, in addition to our integrator. And I'm like, should I even ask this question? Is this even okay to ask? Like, what if someone's in the room that hears this? Like, there's this just strong guilt factor, I think, that comes with something like extended time off, whether it's even a week in some cases or 2 weeks, and certainly an entire summer off of work. So, but figured this is a great opportunity. So got up there to the microphone, asked that question to Rob and to Gino, and it was so fun afterwards because you walked over and introduced yourself, and you had your 4-week vacation book, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is meant to be. So there it is. Yeah. So that was that's the story of how we connected, and then saw each other again this year, and just super fun to just talk about the journey. I think it's like that's ultimately what it is, and I'm so grateful for the community and what you're doing, with the book, and even bigger than that. And I think, it's similar to entrepreneurship. Taking a 4-week vacation or extended sabbatical, whatever you want to call it, it's sort of a lonely place. There's not necessarily an easy handbook or to your book has been super helpful, but there's still so much that goes into that I'm trying to figure out, as many others have as well.
Well, yeah. So let's unpack this a little bit, because when you and I connected and I gave you the book, I invited you to take the 4-week vacation pledge, where you pledged that, yes, I want to work on this. And I love what you're saying about the loneliness and the guilt, because those are 2 very powerful experiences that get in our way. And I think we should just, let's talk about the guilt first, about taking so much time off from the business. And that guilt was so strong. I heard you say that it almost kept you from even asking a question in a room full of business owners about taking time off, even though the topic was clearly about more time away from the business, being a better leader, downtime, and the value of that. You still felt guilt. So what was the guilt for you?
Yeah, I mean, the guilt is, and it's still there, but to a much lesser extent, and can share some of how I've gotten past some of that. But the just guilt around, we have this business, our team is working their tail off, doing an awesome job, and here's the owner of the business, CEO of the business, and just disappears for a month. And is that something that we offer to our entire team? So, we've not yet talked about, are we going to offer this to everybody in the company? I don't know. It's challenging because there's some positions in our business that probably can't go away for a month. And so I think that's the biggest, or one of the biggest guilt factors is, okay, just being gone and as the leader of a business, typically really trying to focus on setting the standard, for our company, for values, for work ethic, for behavior, and to share that with the team and to just disappear. Just to me, there's a disconnect between what I'm doing and what we expect of the team to do. And that's something that it's still there. It still exists in my head. But I've seen so many other benefits to taking the time off, and haven't even yet taken the time off, but I know that there'll be more that comes from it. And I think it's only going to help. And I think part of what has really helped me get past the guilt is last year when I just took a week off, but I've been doing less and less in the business. And it really stemmed from kind of some negative feedback that our team gave to me, which was one of the greatest gifts I think I've ever received. I was getting too involved in the business. Like I was not letting go and not giving the team the rope, like not letting them grab the vine, right? To use that terminology. And it's been so fun because the less I'm doing, the more the team is doing. And so that's helped me so much in terms of this, taking the 4 weeks off, is that our team is looking forward to it. Like because they're rising up and it's a challenge to them, especially our leadership team. It's a challenge to them to step up and see what they can do and see how they can prove themselves. So that's been a huge part of getting past that guilt and reducing that, is seeing it as an opportunity, right? An opportunity for the team to do more within the business and to own more of what goes on within the company.
Yeah. One of the awarenesses that I've had just in the last year is that when we get too involved in the business, and I have that tendency too, I totally relate to what you're describing. What we're accidentally doing is creating glass ceilings for our leaders in the business, because we're not creating the opportunity for them to rise up and show us what they're capable of. And when we get out of the way, they absolutely have that opportunity. And one of the things that I think is really fascinating about your situation, you run on EOS, so the Entrepreneurial Operating System, based on the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And you have a leadership team, you have level 10 meetings, and everything about that is designed for those level 10 meetings to happen, whether you're there or not. And for whatever reason, you haven't been taking advantage of that opportunity to not be there and see what happens.
Yeah, I've been thinking about, because I've been talking to a peer group that I'm a part of, and I'm describing how, I'm working less and less and kind of committed to working, 20 hours a week. And everyone is pushing back and telling me that I'm crazy, that will never work, and that I'm an idiot in not so many words. And I might be, that very well might be the case. And I think, ultimately what I've realized is that having a system, having EOS, like to your point with the L10s, having that building cadence, that's what gives the confidence to any leader, whether, CEO, owner, that everything's being accounted for and being taken care of, because everything has a place. And so there's just that constant and consistent cadence to how we meet, how we solve issues, how we do our long-term planning, all of our, quarterly goals that our team is reporting on every week in those L10s. So yeah, without something like EOS, some type of management system like that, I no chance would be able to take time off and also be working my way out of the business and allowing the team to work their way up in the business.
Absolutely. And you're speaking to the pressure that we all experience when we go against the grain, because taking a 4-week vacation, working 20 hours, I work a 25-hour work week. All of that is very counter to traditional hustle culture in entrepreneurship. And whenever we do something that is different, the feedback is that won't work. And because there's not a lot of examples of other people making it work. And so that leads to what you were describing earlier, is there's this sense of loneliness of, hey, I'm the only one out here who's trying to do this. So talk to me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, it is lonely, and I totally agree with everything you're saying. I think I've got a lot of good friends that I want to go share everything I'm doing. I want to hear everything that they're doing. Like, what are you doing life-wise, family, kids, hobbies, work, and I want to do the same. And so it's strange because I'm sharing all these things that relate to me not working. And doing more, just on the personal side, more baseball coaching with our boys, more volunteer work at our boys' schools, taking date days with my wife once a month, and so stuff like that others are not in a position to do. And again, it comes back to, like you said, comes back to loneliness, comes back to guilt. So I wish I had a better answer for how to handle it, other than I'm so committed to it. I've found enough probably books or third party kind of thought leaders that just are so consistent in the message of working, figuring out what's most important. And I think I work with a business coach who I consider him really more of a life coach, and we were going through some pretty difficult business things last year. And I just commented to him, I'm like, you know what, we've got all this stressful stuff going on with the business, but it hasn't affected me as a dad or a husband. And he's like, well, that's because it's at the top of your hierarchy. Like that the top of your hierarchy is your family. It is the boys. It is your wife. And so that was an eye-opening moment for me, because it realized that, the business stuff, it's stressful. There's all that fear that gets built up. There's all those issues that don't go away. They have to get handled. But if you know your hierarchy, and if you're only working, in your case, 25 hours, in my case, committed to 20 hours, that it makes it easier to stay committed to that. But it's finding somebody, or finding books, or finding a community like 4-week vacation or other leaders. It's hard to find that stuff, but there's enough of it out there that once you find it, just stay committed to it. Just have that resolve. That's been my approach. But it's extremely lonely because everyone pushes back. I think that's like human nature. Is the world's going to push back. Like anytime you're trying to do, similar to entrepreneurship, the world pushes back. Anytime you're trying to do something that's unique, that's different, that is something that others maybe don't even dream of being possible for them, they're going to push back in many ways. And that's been a super big challenge, to have some of my best friends basically tell me I'm doing it wrong. So it's challenging, but I'm committed, I guess. And yeah, we'll see.
Well, I want to just tell you that your experience is really common. And I want to invite you into the Tap the Potential Mighty Networks community. Anybody who's listening who wants to join us there, it's tapthepotential.com/group, where that's a community filled with entrepreneurs who believe work supports life, not the other way around, and who are working on these experiences in their businesses, trying to reduce the hours that they're working, taking more unplugged time off, and really valuing family and mental well-being over grow that revenue in the business and add more team members and make it bigger. And I think one of the things that really stands out to me is that in the entrepreneurial community, there are thought leaders that are talking more about the importance of self-care and time off. When I reached out to Gino and asked him to write the foreword for my book, and he responded and he wrote the foreword, he was very excited to be able to endorse a book that goes so in depth on entrepreneurial burnout and the experience that so many of us have when we just push, and a methodology to take your life back essentially from the business while the business can grow. And I think that's what is hard for a lot of entrepreneurs to wrap your head around, is if you focus on your highest value contributions to the business, you don't need to work 40 hours a week. And Seth, what I'm really curious, is you're working 20 hours a week, what have you gotten clear on is your highest value contribution in the business?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, early on I would do so much. I would just try to go find all the problems and then try to solve all the problems. And a couple things that I think have really opened my eyes are one, the concept of, who, not how. So the Dan, I think it's the Dan Sullivan concept.
Mhm.
I've heard it within the EOS community. Who, not how. I used to think I had 1,000 problems. Well, it turns out it's just one. We just have to have the right leader. As if my job is really to find the right leader for our business, and then those 1,000 problems become either the integrators, the presidents, or the rest of the leadership teams, the rest of the company. So, who, not how was a huge part of helping me get clear in that. I think the next one was looking at my job is really to make the decisions. And so it's not to go out and execute all of it, but it's to make the decisions. And I think I would always in the past want to control every single piece of everything that was going on in the company, right? The classic like entrepreneur, it's your baby, right? It's my baby. It's my name on the personal guarantee. There's a lot of fear that gets built up with that, right? And you kind of you want everything to look to have your stamp on it. I think that's the best way I can put it. So I wanted to always have my stamp on it, but then I realized that I just need to have my stamp of approval. It doesn't need to be the way I would do it. And so there was this great I forgot where I heard the quote, but the quote was basically, it's this great paradox, like that the more you control you give up, the more control you actually get. And that was so eye-opening to me because I realized, I was trying to control these 1,000 things. And because of that, I was losing control because I'm trying to manage and control those 1,000 things rather than giving up control to our team to step up. So that's probably the best way I can put it. Probably really those two things, the who, not how, and then just recognizing, it's really my role to make decisions,
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
execute them. Yeah.
So, as you have extricated yourself from the doing in the business, and you started really intentionally doing this last summer after you made the pledge, what are some of the steps that you went through? How did you just kind of walk us through this process for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, the first step, we had EOS in place, but couldn't have even started this without having some management system in place. So we had that in place. The next part I found was mostly inner work, like because for me at least, there was so much fear of the business collapsing or my own personal drive collapsing if I took my foot off the gas. So I always kind of assume, okay, if I take my foot off the gas, like that's it. I'm just gonna coast. The business is just gonna coast, and I'm just gonna lose my edge. Business is gonna lose its edge. So really read a lot of books, and the two that were the most impactful or three that were most impactful that I got right around that time from that EOS conference in 2023. And these were, the first two were Gino recommendations, but Letting Go by David Hawkins and then Untethered Soul, Michael
Mhm.
Singer. Those two were huge for me for recognizing my own internal fear around around the business and around like doing less. And so that was massive. And I think that's allowed me to really let go of the vine. And so that was the first step, was that internal work. Step two was really around expectations for the business. I realized, I had a lot of expectations in my head, and we've got our VTO, we've got everything, within the EOS world sketched out, but I hadn't been clear on some of the things that don't necessarily fit into the VTO. So I spent, a couple of days and put together an expectations packet for our president, for our integrator, that just mapped out everything else. And that was so helpful because now our integrator knew exactly what I wanted, exactly what I was thinking, and then could go to work on executing the things that he didn't know already. So that was super helpful. And then the third was, what to do with the rest of the time, because that's the easy thing is, well, okay, what I have 20 additional hours in the week. I used to just go find more problems in the business to try to solve. And then I'd be sending out 100 emails a day to our team or calling people and just driving everybody crazy. So, okay, how do I fill that time? So now I really just like pre-schedule most things. So scheduling time to go for a hike, scheduling went mountain biking for the first time, went to, a couple Pilates classes for the first, just all this random stuff that I put on my personal VTO. Is eventually I'll kind of get to these things, and just random novelty seeking things. Cause I guess that's just kind of what lights me up. But I know plenty of people that want to go golfing 3 days a week. That's not me. I'd rather be trying just different stuff. So I think finding ways to,
I want to interrupt here because you threw out something very interesting, your personal VTO. So for those who aren't as familiar with EOS, the VTO is Vision Traction Organizer, and you have your core values there. In our world, we call those immutable laws, the vision for the company, and the 3 uniques, what makes you unique. And that's all business related. What does your personal VTO consist of?
Yeah, personal, somewhat similar. Tried to really translate it all to the personal side, but it's like, having this realization that, and similar to your slogan, right? Work supports life, not the other way around. Came up with my own personal VTO. We've got this great system for our business. Why don't we have a great system for my personal life? And so took a lot of the tools and, starting with core values, just going through personal core values exercise. There's I think a site that Gino recommends. I think it's Think to Perform. Doing that and then working down to, what's my passion? What is the number one thing that I live for? To me, it's enjoy my family. Like that's it. It's 3 simple words, and enjoy my family. And that's my sort of guiding light. And then from there have gone into, okay, setting a 10-year target. That's where that taking all summers off of work came from, as that initial 10-year target. And I found that that's, once I set that target and then was very clear on it, achieved it much faster than I ever thought. And I didn't take the summer off of work, but I worked way less than ever before, and basically got 80% of the way there mentally. So I have just I think the more important part is the cadence of it. And so every quarter I set 2 hours for myself to do a personal planning day and go through the personal VTO. There's a book I read, EOS Life book I like to read the week before to prepare for that. And I'll go through and just see where I'm at relative to those 10-year goals that I've set, relative to 3-year goals that I've set as well. And then figure out, okay, what are the personal rocks I want to set for the next quarter? And some of those could be business related in terms of like working on the business. Some are like fitness related. I like to just kind of set a challenge for myself for different, just a way to compete. That's something that my coaches often ask me. He's like, well, how are you competing? How am I competing? Man, give me a break, man. I'm trying to build a great business. I'm trying to raise a great family. How am I competing? But okay. So it's been fun just trying to compete for something on for me, the fitness side. And then coming up with just a few different rocks for myself personally. Could be related to reading books. It could be just different novelty things like going shrimping. I went shrimping for the first time, stuff like that makes it onto the calendar. Or this is, I don't know how deep you want to get. This is a deep one, but I ended up, I'm adopted, and I ended up, recently setting a personal goal to connect with my birth mom. And this is kind of a crazy thing, but so that's been something just in the last 6 weeks basically. And so stuff like that I think, and I'm glossing over tons of details for something that is extremely impactful to my life. But I think without kind of that built-in cadence to bring awareness to my life and what's important and family and that hierarchy that was talking about, without that, I don't think, end up having either the time and or the mental capacity to go do something, like try to track down a birth mom kind of thing.
I so appreciate you going into that depth around this, because I think that's the hardest piece for most of us when we start contemplating working less and taking an extended period of time off from our business. That question comes up, well, what do I do with myself? Because we're so used to being busy. And when we have this kind of wide open space in our lives and we have to figure out what to do with it, it's very intimidating. It was for me. And I love how you found a structure through the personal VTO and some of the structures that you put in place in the business. You're taking that into your personal life and saying, no, I'm going to do this on the personal side too. And it's allowing you to go deeper. And that just the journey of you reconnecting with your birth mom, that's going to be an incredible experience. And you're right, you have to have space for that. That's not something you just squeeze into a 60-hour work week and just say, oh yeah, I met my birth mom, it was great.
Totally. Yeah.
There's a lot of mental and emotional consequences in that you're going to experience, that you need the space for, and you're creating that space. Kudos to you, Seth, for that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
I'm curious, how have your relationships with your wife and your children evolved in the last year as you've been more intentional to, and I love your phrase, you're solving for life versus solving for work?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think I've got so much more energy. I heard this line at the EOS conference this year, life is an energy game. And then couldn't agree more. It was so well said. I'm like, that's exactly it. And I realized like everything I'm doing is trying to maximize my energy. And I have so much more energy for our family now. And it's, I used to come home on the weekends and I just felt like I wasn't present with the boys and Leanne until Sunday. It's like I was gassed. I needed all of Friday night. I needed all of Saturday just to like decompress. And the image I always like paint, or the analogy, is like, typical work week for most people, you're down like deep sea diving. You're deep sea diving all week or all day, and then all of a sudden the weekend hits at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever it is on Friday, and you shoot right up to the surface, and you can't do that. It's like that the body's like not, you've got to like acclimate as you're going you back up, and that's what I found myself basically explode, like lungs exploding. It's like my brain is not ready, like my emotions, my energy, it's not ready, and I would need until Sunday to basically ascend to the surface to finally be present again, and then it's Monday the next day. So that's been probably the biggest I guess to answer your question, so much more energy, and able to be there, after school, able to be there coaching baseball almost every day for, in the springtime, huge passion, and more time for stuff like date days. I think it's, so easy to, okay, now I have more energy, put it into the boys. Okay, well, really can lose sight of your spouse in those cases as well. And so doing some, a date day once a month has been super refreshing. And I never would have carved out time or thought that was, something that I could do in the past. And so, to just have a ton more energy is the short answer.
I love the metaphor of the deep sea diving and the acclimation that we go through. And when we come back up and we lift our heads up from the business and we try to integrate in our personal lives, it takes a long time. It's a huge energy shift. And our families feel that, our loved ones feel it, and they feel like we're never fully with them. And so what I'm picking up in what you're sharing is that you are much more integrated in daily life now than you ever have been. And you don't feel like you're doing a deep sea dive when you're working. You feel like you're able to navigate both worlds pretty well and be present.
100%. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. And be present in both. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's amazing. So I want to shift here, and you've got 2 months. You're going to go on your 4-week vacation in August. What are you focused on in the next 2 months to get ready for this?
Yeah, I think the last year has been so helpful because it's like almost been unintentionally preparing for it, with doing less and less, the team doing more and more, and delegating a bunch. I have in the last month hired a new incredible assistant to help me. So she's up and running, spending a lot of time right now just like working on the system of me, like for lack of a better term. It's like very unemotional to think of yourself or your life as like a system, but it's helpful, it's similar to EOS. I'm like, okay, EOS is a system. How about my own life and just like how I operate and how information and to-dos and everything just flows within my personal kind of world. So really have dedicated a lot of time to just delegation, which is not, it's a muscle that I've not developed and not built. And so great book that you recommended, that the Michael Hyatt book, another book, the Dan Martell book, Buy Back Your Time, like both those books sitting on my desk. So have really gone to work, reading those books. Another book, Work the System, in terms of just system creation. That's been impactful. So trying to prepare for my August sabbatical that way, with kind of, building myself as a system to help my assistant kind of run my life, but also our team is ready. I mean, they do so much of the work already. No one's going to miss me. I think that's the that's the best part. It's so that, I guess that's the answer. And I don't know if I can do this, but I want to share it because I would love either feedback for you or from anyone that can help. My best moments, like just as a person and with our family, like when I like connect the most, like with our boys and Leanne, is when my phone is off, so like there's times when I'm on vacation for a week and I just don't check my phone. And the same thing on weekends, like the best weekends are, and I do this often, drives some of my friends crazy, but usually don't look at my phone from Friday night to Sunday night or Monday morning. And those are pretty high correlation between doing that and having my best weekends and just being the most present. So I spoke this out loud a couple of months ago and told a good buddy of mine I was going to not use my phone all of August. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to go on this sabbatical. I'm not even going to use my phone for the whole month. So that's been a goal within the sabbatical plan as well. We are going on a family trip to go visit some friends on the East Coast, so I don't know how that's going to work. But that's something that I'm intrigued by. So those two things. And then one last thing has been, a friend of mine challenged me when I mentioned the sabbatical. He's like, the real challenge for you is going to be not thinking about work the whole time. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to take the time off and not be at work or not do work. How can you take the time off and not think about work at all? So that's something recent that I'm, trying to sit with and figure out, whether it's different books that I read. I'm typically like many, I'm sure, entrepreneurs in this community and in general, typically reading, personal development books or business books of some kind. So got to find a way to find some novels and non-work related books. So that's kind of how I'm preparing right now. And I'm sure that'll evolve a little bit in the next couple of months.
Well, let's talk about these, because these are two really big issues. The phone. You're the first entrepreneur I've ever encountered who said, I don't want to use my phone the entire month. When I ran retreats and we would have entrepreneurs come to the retreats, we would have them put their cell phone in a basket for the day and just unplug for the day. They could have it back in the evening, but unplug for the day. And there were real withdrawal symptoms happening for people doing that. And I believe it's so important for us to unplug. Seth, and I want to acknowledge you for this intention. Like, I want to figure out how to not use my phone for an entire month. When we unplug, we are allowing ourselves to be fully present in the moment. And years ago, maybe 15 years ago, most people didn't carry around cell phones. And this is a recent development, but we all act as if we need them now. And so some tips for what I've learned as I've taken a 4-week vacation. I take all of my social media apps off my phone. I take my work apps off my phone. So Voxer, Slack, Asana, anything where I'm going to get any notification from the team comes off the phone. I don't have a solution for how that. My phone is my only, if I needed to call somebody, that's the only piece of equipment I have to do that. I don't have a landline. So I don't have a good solution for how to go totally phoneless. I have heard people get the older kinds of cell phones that don't have all the apps on them, maybe as one solution for that. And then, of course, there is the landline phone.
Yeah, no, it's great. Just hearing that has got me really intrigued, and just to do the experiment. I think, yeah, the flip phone idea, that's a great idea, just as like an emergency to be able to call. That's the one thing I'm only concerned about, is really the emergency phone call. And the other, I've been testing this, and I think I've got it to work at this point, but like auto responding via text.
Yes.
I don't want to just be gone for a month and like not respond to any text, but also I want to try to not text for a month. So yeah. I think the iPhone, I think the iPhone now, and I think it's, if you put it in driving mode, you can have an auto respond feature. And so that's the only thing I've come up with on the phone side. And then having my assistant from the email, from all communication standpoint, personal email and work email, obviously.
Yeah. So I just want to acknowledge you, because when I saw you in April at the EOS conference, you were trying to figure out, like, how do you get an assistant who can handle your email and handle your personal communications? And I shared with you Michael Hyatt's book, The World Class Assistant, and then you found another book that you've read. And just in 2 months' time, it sounds like you've made huge strides on this in your life.
Yeah, and you've been a huge inspiration for that. I think, one, the vacation, right? I think you've really helped inspire and give permission for a longer vacation. The book that you recommended, the Michael Hyatt book, has been incredible. And then also, just how casually you mentioned to me that you do 30 minutes of email on Tuesdays, 30 minutes of email on Thursdays. I'm like, okay, there you go. There's the goal. That's it. Sometimes you just need that focal point and someone else to tell you what's possible. And yes. So that's been a huge inspiration, is just, your the way you organize a lot of your life and work life.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying about, you just need someone to say it's possible, because that allows us to give ourselves permission. And I want to acknowledge you by being out here, coming on the podcast, and just being out there in the world as someone who is taking a 4-week vacation, who's working 20 hours a week. You are role modeling, you're trailblazing for other entrepreneurs to show them what's possible. And I also want to acknowledge, part of being a trailblazer is a bit lonely. People give you the feedback like, you're crazy, that stuff doesn't work. Well, it's working. So
big time. Yes.
Here it is working. So there was something else that you said that you were trying to sort out and you wanted input on, and I don't remember what it was. It's slipping my mind.
Oh, I think just the phone aspect of just like how to go a month without a phone. I think that was the only one I can remember right now. But that's the one that's like so hard to find anyone out there that's done that or wants to do it, to your point, and haven't found many resources online. So I don't know, maybe I'll just have to do it, experiment with it, and see how it goes.
Yeah, just find out what works.
Yeah.
When you come back, one of the things that's really important is that you don't take back the things that you've delegated. How are you gonna navigate that?
Yeah, you mentioned that to me. It was great, and I think I thought about it 2 ways. One was, don't take back what you've delegated, and I also even deeper, I took it as like, don't take back that like that time. Don't take back that 4-week sabbatical, as in do it again next year. Like, keep doing it. Like that is now the expectation, is that's always the time that gets taken off, and that you take a 1-month sabbatical every year, because it'd be so easy to find a reason next year why that wouldn't work. I mean, I can think of 3 big things that we have with our business that are happening next summer. I'm like, oh, I can't possibly take it off next summer. But realizing it's such a slippery slope, right? If I give it back 1 year, then suddenly it's gone, and then I've got to just get back up over this hurdle all over again. And I can just see that being super hard. So in terms of taking back tasks that I've delegated, I think I'm not too concerned about that. I feel like, again, our team's doing everything. Like I hardly do a thing anymore, and so that, I think that'll be the relatively easy part, is not taking back tasks I've delegated. The harder part will be not giving back the time and making sure that I do this every year and stay super committed to it.
Yes, I encourage you to do that. And one of the reasons that I encourage that is because our businesses grow and evolve. And so just because you're able to do it this year doesn't mean that if you don't continue doing it, that your business is not going to be the same. And if you don't continue doing it, you deprive the business of that growth that it needs to have, that needs to go through for it to be able to function without you as the business undertakes growth and evolvement. And the other thing that is really interesting around this, and you touched on this at the beginning of our conversation, is could other team members be able to do this? And you mentioned you have some key team members where it feels like, I don't think we can function if they're not around for 4 weeks. You and I reconnected at EOS this past year, and we were both in a session on exit planning. And one of my big takeaways from that session was around us not having any key team member dependency in our business. And I started thinking, oh, yeah, we're great at Tap the Potential because I can take 4-week vacations. We got this no key team member dependency thing down. But then as I started going through our accountability chart, and I realized, oh, our integrator, she's kind of a key team member. What might happen if she's not there? And then some of our leadership team. And so this has put us, Seth, on a journey of how do we do this so that everyone on the leadership team is able to be away for a 4-week vacation. And team members who've been with us for several years, we also want them to have that same opportunity. So we want to have it at every level of our accountability chart. And I think one of the things that we're finding, because our integrator has taken 4 weeks off, she's done it twice now, I believe. One of the things that we're finding is the rule of thumb is when things get delegated, they don't delegate up the chart, because it'd be really easy for the integrator to say, I've got to be gone. So here's 10 things you're going to be doing now. But the rule of thumb is this always has to go down the accountability chart, because when it goes down the accountability chart, we're creating opportunities for people who are more junior to us to learn and show what they're capable of. And it also creates redundancy in the business. So there's some roles that, because we're a relatively small company, that it doesn't make sense for us to have 2 or 3 team members doing the same role, but we do need to have redundancy built in where someone can handle those key responsibilities so that person can be out, because it's not just being out for 4 weeks. If somebody had a medical need to be out for an extended period, life happens, emergencies happen, family members get ill. And so we're striving to create a team where the team can function regardless of who's here and who's not here. And it's not easy, Seth. I'll tell you, there are some things that are hard to sort out. Right now, as we're recording this, our sales team member is out. She's our sales lead. She is out for a week. And we had to figure out how do her duties get handled. And they didn't come back to me. They went in other areas of the accountability chart. So it can be done, but I don't want to say this is easy. It's a piece of cake, because it's not. It takes a lot of brain power and thinking.
Totally. Yeah. And I think good for you for putting all that thought to it. And I love that delegate down, not up, because I think that, like you said, that provides so much opportunity for the team to learn more about the business and to rise up.
Yeah. And so ultimately, I want to just acknowledge you're creating tremendous value in your business by you stepping out and taking this 4-week vacation. And I anticipate when you come back, you're probably going to be thinking about how do we get this happening in other areas of the business, which that just creates more and more value in the business.
For sure. Yep. Love it. Super inspired. Love it.
So for those of you listening, if you're inspired to take a 4-week vacation, head on over to tapthepotential.com/pledge and make your pledge. When you pledge, you are going to be reached out to by Caitlin on our team, and she's going to ask you, what challenges do you anticipate coming up? What is challenging you to even think about being away from your business? And we have resources, and she will share resources with you. We are committed to having more entrepreneurs out there in the world like Seth, trailblazing and showing what's possible, that you can take time from the business and the business can function. And Seth, you're clearly a better human being for doing this. So kudos to you. Any final words as we wrap up?
No, just your comment about I think having that accountability partner, in terms of whether it's Caitlin or whether it's your leadership team or somebody. It wasn't until I committed publicly to our entire team that I was taking a month off, because I had tried to do it last summer, tried to take 2 weeks off. I couldn't do it. And so it was super helpful for me just to have that accountability partner. So get out in the world. Don't be afraid of it. That's all I got. But Sabrina, thanks so much for having me on. It's a blast just to talk about it. And thank you for what you're doing for, entrepreneurs and the community and for their lives and their families.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Seth. You inspired some people today, I think.
Enjoy.